The stolen summer Sophia Reeves leaned against the railing of the research vessel, her notebook clutched to her chest as she watched the sun melt into the Aegean Sea. Tomorrow would be her last day in Santorini before returning to her marine biology program in Boston. 6 weeks studying Mediterranean coral restoration had flown by like a dream, planning to jump ship before we reached shore. The voice behind her carried a hint of amusement mixed with the subtle cadence of Greek and British. Education Draco stood a few feet away, the owner's son who occasionally joined their research expeditions. Tall, with olive skin and eyes the color of stormy seas, he had a reputation among the crew for being brilliant but distant, the reluctant heir to Draco's Maritime, one of Europe's premier luxury yacht companies.
Oh.
Just saying goodbye, Sophia replied, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. We're not all fortunate enough to call these waters home. Something in her frankness seemed to intrigue him. What began as casual conversation about her research evolved into an invitation to dinner at his family's cliffside villa. One dinner became 2, then 3, until they were spending every evening together, exploring hidden beaches and ancient ruins, away from curious eyes. My family has expectations, Julian confessed one night, as they lay beneath a canopy of stars. The business, the legacy, it's suffocating sometimes. You're the first person who sees me as something else. Sophia understood burden. It's her scholarship. Demanded excellence. Her divorced parents expected perfection. But here, with him, she felt weightless. Their romance burned bright and fast, inevitable and temporary, like summer itself. I'll be back next year, she promised on their final night. Let's not complicate things, Julian interrupted gently. What we had was perfect because it was brief. Sophia nodded, swallowing disappointment. Adults could have mature goodbyes without melodrama. They exchanged email addresses rather than promises. 2 months later, staring at a positive pregnancy test in her tiny Boston apartment, Sophia's hands trembled as she composed an email. She wasn't asking for money or marriage, just acknowledgement, perhaps participation if he wanted it. She was keeping the baby, regardless. Julian's response came 3 days later, cold and formal. I find the timing of your claim suspicious. I was transparent about my family's position. This feels calculated. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh. I need to be direct. If you're seeking financial support, I recommend looking elsewhere. This is not my responsibility. Sophia read it 7 times, each word cutting deeper than the last. She called the number he'd given her for emergencies. He answered on the 4th ring. It's Sophia. Please don't hang up. I have nothing more to say. Julian's voice was tight, controlled. My family has dealt with these situations before. Situations? I'm not lying to you, perhaps not intentionally, but the facts remain questionable. I'm sorry, but I can't be involved in this. Julian, please, goodbye, Sophia. Pride stung worse than rejection. Instead, she finished her degree with a growing belly, accepted a position at the New England Aquarium's Conservation Department, and welcomed Elizabeth Eliza Reeves into the world on a snowy April morning. Alone, Sophia gazed at her newborn daughter's face, tracing the delicate features that might someday resemble her father's. It's just us, little fish, she whispered, and that's going to be more than enough. She never expected to hear from Julian Dracos again. Plans. Tides of solitude for years passed like shifting sands. Sophia's life revolved around 2 constants, her work at the New England Aquarium's Conservation Department and her daughter Eliza, who grew more remarkable with each passing day. The little girl inherited Sophia's curiosity and determination, but her striking features particularly. Her high cheekbones and the way her eyebrows arched when puzzled were unmistakably Julian's. On Eliza's 4th birthday, they celebrated. At the aquarium after hours, Sophia had arranged for her daughter to feed the penguins, Eliza's favorite animals. As the little girl giggled with delight, Sophia's colleague Tessa nudged her. Single motherhood looks good on you, but don't you ever think about dating again? Sophia smiled, watching Eliza carefully offer fish to a Gen 2 penguin under the keeper's supervision. Between work and her, there isn't exactly time for romantic entanglements. You're only 31, not ancient history, Tessa persisted. What about Eliza's father? You never talk about him. Nothing to talk about, Sophia replied, her voice cooling. He made his choice before she was born. The truth was more complicated. Sophia had created a special email account after Eliza's births, sending annual updates and photos to Julian without expectation of response. She never mentioned these one-sided communications to anyone. They weren't for him, they were for Eliza someday. Proof that her mother had tried to keep the door open. However slightly, across the Atlantic, Julian Draco stood at the helm of Draco's Maritime, the company's CEO following his father's semi-retirement. The family business had expanded under his leadership, adding sustainable eco-tours to their luxury yacht offerings. Business publications praised his innovative approach, though few noticed the hollowness behind his public smile. Julian's personal assistant, Nora, interrupted his thoughts one rainy Athens afternoon. Your mother called again? Your grandmother's condition has worsened. Julian pinched the bridge of his nose. Helena Dracos, the family matriarch, had been declining for months. At 93, she remained the company's largest shareholder and the keeper of the family's most closely guarded secrets. 3 days later, Helena passed peacefully in her sleep. The funeral brought the extended Dracos clan together at the family's ancestral island estate. Following the service, Julian and his relatives gathered in his grandmother's study for the reading of her will. The family lawyer, Mr. Dimitriou, adjusted his glasses before continuing with the most unusual clause. Furthermore, before final distribution of assets and company shares, require verification of all potential Draco's heirs, including any unacknowledged descendants of current family members. This search must be conducted with thoroughness and discretion before inheritance can be finalized. The room fell silent. Julian's father, Stavros, frowned. What does that mean exactly? Mr. Dimitriou cleared his throat. It means that if any family member has children they haven't officially recognized, those children must be identified and verified before Helena's estate can be settled. Julian felt his Aunt Camilla's gaze boring into him from across the room. Unlike his parents, who spent most of their time traveling between residences, Camilla had been Helena's confidant and companion. Something in her expression made Julian's stomach tighten. Later that evening, as relatives dispersed to their respective guest rooms, Camilla cornered Julian on the terrace. Your grandmother knew about the American, she said without preamble. The marine biologist. Julian froze, his wine glass halfway to his lips. I don't know what you're talking about. Lena had her investigated after you suddenly ended your summer romance. The girl had a child. Camilla's voice softened. A little girl who would be about 4 now. That's impossible, Julian replied. Automatically, though his heart hammered against his ribs. She was lying. Was she? Camilla pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos before holding it up to show Julian an image of Sophia walking hand in hand with a small child outside. What appeared to be an aquarium? Helena received this from her investigator last year. She was waiting for you to come clean. The child's face was partially obscured, but Julian couldn't look away. Why didn't grandmother confront me? She believes some realizations need to come in their own time. Camilla tucked the phone away. But now, with the will's stipulation, time has run out. Need to know if this child is yours. Julian gripped the terrace railing. Memories of Sophia flooding back her passion for her work, her laughter, the hurt in her voice during their last conversation. He'd convinced himself she was manipulating him, because the alternative that he'd abandoned his own child was unthinkable. What do you suggest I do? He finally asked. The right thing, Camilla answered simply. Start with a DNA test. Then, regardless of the outcome, you make amends for how you treated her. That night, Julian couldn't sleep. He found himself opening his laptop and typing Sophia Reeves, marine biologist, Boston, into the search bar. Articles about her conservation work appeared, along with the aquarium's staff directory. One photograph showed her accepting an award for educational programming, small girl partially visible at her side. With trembling fingers, Julian opened his email and found the account he'd created years ago, but never checked. There they were for years of updates, each with the same subject line, for Eliza's father. No demands, no accusations, just simple milestones, first steps, first words, favorite books, tiny triumphs. The most recent email contained a video clip of Eliza examining a tide pool, little face serious with concentration as she gently touched a sea star. "Look, Mommy," the child's voice said clearly. "It's breathing with its feet." Julian closed the laptop, a strange ache spreading through his chest. The possibility that he'd made a terrible mistake could no longer be denied. Testing water, Sophia was preparing slides for her upcoming lecture when her office phone rang. The aquarium's receptionist sounded apologetic. "There's a woman here insisting on seeing you. She says her name is Camilla Dracos." The name sent a jolt through Sophia's body. After a moment's hesitation, she said, "Send her to my office, please." Camilla Dracos was elegant in a way that seemed effortless, silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a chignon, simple but obviously expensive linen suit, and calculating eyes that missed nothing. She extended her hand with European formality. "Thank you for seeing me without an appointment, Dr. Reeves. I'm Julian's aunt." Sophia gestured to the chair across from her desk. "What brings you to Boston, Miss Dracos?" "Family matters," Camilla replied, setting her handbag aside. "My mother, Julian's grandmother, passed away recently. Her will contains certain stipulations. Regarding heirs, Sophia's expression remained neutral. "I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't see how this concerns me." "I think you do." Camilla's gaze was direct but not unkind. "Helena knew about your daughter. She had suspicions about why Julian reacted so... defensively to your news years ago. Did Julian send you?" Sophia asked, her voice tight. "No, he doesn't know I'm here yet, and he will need to meet Eliza and arrange for a DNA test." Sophia laughed without humor. After 4 years of silence, he made his position quite clear. "People make mistakes," Camilla said simply, "especially when they're frightened." "Frightened," Sophia repeated incredulously. "He accused me of trying to trap him." Julian watched his father pay off 3 different women who claimed to be carrying Stavros's children over the years. None of the claims were legitimate. It colored his perspective. Sophia shook her head. "That explains his reaction, but doesn't excuse it." "No, it doesn't," Camilla agreed. "But Eliza deserves to know her father, and according to my mother's will, she may also be entitled to a significant inheritance. We don't need his money. Perhaps not. But this isn't just about money. It's about identity, family history, medical information." Camilla leaned forward. "Meet with Julian. Let him see his daughter. If you still want nothing to do with him afterward, at least Eliza will have answers someday when she inevitably asks about her father." 2 weeks later, Sophia stood nervously in a private room at a waterfront restaurant, Eliza coloring contentedly at a table nearby. When Julian walked in, Sophia's breath caught. He looked both exactly the same and completely different, more refined. Subtle threads of silver at his temples, but his eyes still held that same intensity. He stopped abruptly when he saw Eliza, his gaze fixed on the child's face. The little girl looked up curiously, revealing eyes that caused Julian to pale. Visibly, her right eye was deep blue, while her left was amber-flecked green. "Heterochromia," he whispered. Sophia nodded. Stiffly, yes. "I mentioned it in one of my emails." "My mother had the same condition," Julian said, his voice strained. "Exactly the same colors." The meeting was brief and awkward. Julian attempted conversation with Eliza, who regarded him with cautious interest. When asked about his big boat, as Sophia had explained his job to her, Julian managed a genuine smile and promised to show her pictures. Next time. The DNA test was conducted discreetly the following day. A week later, Camilla called Sophia with the results, though Sophia had already known what they would show. Her father, Camilla confirmed. "Leon would like to meet with you alone to discuss how to proceed." This time, they met at a quiet cafe near the harbor. Julian arrived early, uncharacteristically nervous, rehearsing what he would say. When Sophia entered, poised and guarded, he stood quickly. "Thank you for coming," he began. "Let's skip the pleasantries," Sophia replied. "Taking a seat? What exactly do you want, Julian?" He took a deep breath. "To apologize first and foremost. I was wrong and excusably wrong to doubt you and to treat you the way I did." "That's a start," she acknowledged coolly. "I'd like to be part of Eliza's life," he continued. "I know I have no right to expect anything, But she's my daughter. Missed for years, I can never get back. And whose fault is that? The words escaped before Sophia could stop them. Julian didn't flinch. Mine. Entirely mine. I'm not asking you to forgive me overnight, or maybe ever. But please don't punish Elisa for my mistakes. Something in his sincerity gave Sophia pause. She's a perceptive child. She's already asking about her father, wondering why other children have daddies, and she doesn't. What have you told her? Her father lives far away across the ocean doing important work with boats. Sophia hesitated. I never spoke badly of you to her. I wanted to leave the door open, just in case. Julian looked surprised, then grateful. Thank you for that. More than I deserved. He slid a folder across the table. Had my lawyers. Draw up financial arrangements. Child support, education fund, health care. No strings attached. Whether or not you allow me into her life. Sophia left the folder untouched. We need to establish some ground rules before anything else happens. Eliza's well-being comes first. No swooping in with grand gestures and expensive gifts, then disappearing when it becomes inconvenient. She needs consistency, not intermittent attention. I understand, Julian said, relief evident in his voice. I'm moving to our Boston office for at least the next 6 months. I want to build a relationship with her gradually, on your terms. As they began outlining boundaries and expectations, Sophia watched Julian's face, searching for signs of the man she'd once known during that stolen summer. Behind the polished exterior of the successful businessman, she glimpsed moments of the passionate, thoughtful person who had once made her feel like the only woman in the world. The road ahead would be complicated, Sophia knew. But as they finalized their initial agreement, she allowed herself to consider, for the first time in years, that Eliza might actually have a father in her life after all. Stormy Reconciliation's first official playdate with Elisa involved a Saturday morning at the Children's Museum. Sophia observed from a distance as father and daughter cautiously navigated this new relationship. Julian, accustomed to commanding boardrooms, found himself completely disarmed by a 4-year-old's direct questions. Why didn't you visit me before? Elisa asked, while constructing a building in the engineering exhibit. Julian glanced nervously at Sophia, who offered, No rescue. This was his question to answer. I was working very far away, he began awkwardly, and I didn't know how wonderful you were. That was my mistake. Eliza considered this, her mismatched eyes so, like his mother's, studying him with unnerving perception. Mommy says everybody makes mistakes. Your mommy is very wise, Julian replied softly. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Julian would visit 3 times a week, Wednesday evenings for dinner and weekend mornings for outings. He learned Eliza's favorite books, her fascination with marine creatures, her preference for apple slices cut into stars using Sophia's special kitchen tool. Each detail was precious to him, evidence of the years he'd foolishly sacrificed. Sophia maintained careful distance during these visits, cordial but reserved. She watched Julian's determined efforts to connect with Elisa's patience when teaching her to fold origami boats, his genuine interest in her preschool stories, his willingness to sit through repeated viewings of animated films. One evening, after Elisa had gone to bed, Julian lingered in Sophia's small but comfortable apartment overlooking the harbor. She asked if I'm staying in Boston forever, he said, helping clear the dinner dishes. Sophia placed glasses in the dishwasher. What did you tell her? That I'm staying as long as I'm needed? He hesitated. I've purchased a condo in Back Bay. I want her to have her own room there. Moving rather quickly, aren't you? I have years to make up for, Julian replied. But I'll respect whatever timeline you think is appropriate. Later that week, Sophia received an unexpected call from her department head. An international choral restoration conference in Bali needed a last-minute replacement speaker, an opportunity too significant to decline, except for one complication. It was scheduled during Julian's planned weekend with Eliza. After considerable internal debate, Sophia called Julian. I need a favor, she explained, outlining the situation. My parents are in Europe, and Tessa is visiting her sister. Would you be comfortable keeping Eliza at your place for those 3 days? She's never stayed overnight without me." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "Cued you. If you're not ready," Sophia began. "No, I want to," Julian interrupted. "Surprised you trust me with this." "You're her father," Sophia said simply. "And you've been consistent these past 2 months. Eliza adores you." The weekend proved transformative. Despite initial tearful goodnight calls to Sophia, Eliza blossomed. Under Julian's undivided attention, they baked cookies using his grandmother's recipe, visited the harbor seals, and built an elaborate blanket fort in Eliza's new room. When Sophia returned, exhausted but professionally fulfilled, she found them asleep on Julian's couch, a children's book open across his chest, and Eliza curled against his side. Something shifted in her heart, a wall beginning to crumble. The following months brought gradual changes. Julian attended Eliza's preschool presentations, handled doctor appointments when Sophia couldn't leave work, and proved himself reliable in both crisis and routine. They began to function as co-parents, if not quite friends, until the storm A, powerful nor'easter, struck Boston without warning one October afternoon. Schools closed early, but flooding delayed Sophia at the aquarium, where she was moving vulnerable specimens to safer tanks. Julian collected Eliza from preschool, bringing her to his condo as planned. Hours later, the storm intensifying and roads becoming impassable, Sophia called Julian in a panic. "I can't get out of the aquarium," she explained over the howling wind. "The coastal road is completely flooded." "Stay where you are," Julian insisted. "It's too dangerous to try reaching us." "We're fine. Here are plenty of food, emergency supplies, board games to keep Elisa entertained." "Put her on, please. She must be frightened." But when Eliza came to the phone, she sounded excited rather than scared. "Daddy says we're having an adventure sleepover. We made shadow puppets with the flashlight when the lights flickered." "Daddy?" The word hung between them when Julian returned to the phone. "She started calling me that last week," he explained quietly. "Shh, I should have mentioned it." Sophia swallowed the complicated emotions rising in her throat. "Take care of her. I'll try to get there tomorrow morning." The storm raged through the night, trapped at the aquarium with several colleagues. Sophia found herself scrolling through the photos Julian sent hourly. Eliza building a pillow mountain, Eliza helping prepare sandwiches by flashlight, Eliza finally asleep surrounded by stuffed animals in her dedicated room at his place by morning. When emergency crews had cleared enough roads for Sophia to reach Julian's condo, she found them building a miniature aquarium from household materials, plastic containers, blue food coloring, and paper fish. "Mommy," Lisa exclaimed. "Daddy said we could get real fish for my room here. Can we get some for our home too?" Our home, as if she now had to. The realization struck Sophia with unexpected force. That evening, after Eliza had fallen asleep in her own bed at Sophia's apartment, Julian prepared to leave. The atmosphere between them had changed, charged with unspoken thoughts. "Thank you," Sophia said, walking him to the door. "For everything these past months, for being the father she deserves." Julian turned to her, emotion evident in his eyes. "I should have believed you 4 years ago. There's no excuse for what I did." "No," she agreed softly. "There isn't. But people can change. You've proven that." Their eyes met, memories of Santorini hanging in the air between them, the brilliant sun, the deep blue sea, the connection that had once seemed so perfect. "Do you ever think about that summer?" Julian asked, his voice low. "Sometimes," Sophia admitted. "But we're different people now." "Yes," he agreed. "Better, I hope." He hesitated, then continued carefully. "Sophia, I know I have no right to ask, but is there any chance we could start again? Not for Eliza's sake, but for ours." The question lingered as rain tapped gently against the windows. Sophia didn't answer immediately, but she didn't say no either. Instead, she said something that felt like a beginning. "Perhaps we could try dinner, just the two of us this time." New Horizons spring arrived in Boston, bringing with it renewal and possibility. Nearly 10 months had passed since Julian had re-entered their lives, and the changes were profound. Elisa now moved comfortably between her two homes, Sophia's Harbor View apartment during the week and Julian's Back Bay condo on alternating weekends. Co-parenting had evolved into a surprisingly harmonious partnership. Their personal relationship had progressed with deliberate caution. After that first dinner, alone, awkward yet strangely familiar, they had established a new tradition. Once weekly evenings together while Elisa stayed with Tessa, who had eagerly embraced her role as honorary aunt. These encounters began formally at restaurants, with proper reservations and careful conversation. Gradually, they shifted to walks along the waterfront, cooking experiments in Julian's kitchen, and quiet discussions about everything except their shared past. They rediscovered each other as they were now, not as they had been in Greece. On Elisa's 5th birthday, they hosted a joint celebration at the aquarium. Watching their daughter excitedly introduce her preschool friends to her favorite exhibits, Sophia felt Julian's presence beside her. "She's thriving," he observed, his voice warm with pride. "She is," Sophia agreed. "You've been good for her." "We've been good for her," Julian corrected gently. "This arrangement works because of both of us." Later that evening, after the guests had departed and Eliza had fallen asleep, surrounded by new toys, Sophia and Julian sat on her apartment balcony, sharing a bottle of wine beneath the stars. "Received an offer today," Julian said after a comfortable silence. "The Athens office needs leadership for an important new initiative. It would mean relocating for at least a year." Sophia's heart constricted unexpectedly. "I see. When would you leave?" "I haven't decided if I'm accepting." Julian turned to face her. "I won't go if it means losing what we've built here." "You can't refuse a career opportunity because of us," Sophia protested, though the thought of him leaving created a hollow feeling she hadn't anticipated. "Not just because of Eliza," Julian clarified, his gaze intent. "Because of you. Because of what's happening between us." The unspoken question hung in the air. What exactly was happening between them? They had carefully avoided labeling their evolving relationship, dancing around feelings neither had been ready to acknowledge. "Julian, before you say anything," he interrupted, "there's another option. The project requires periodic collaboration with marine conservation experts. The company could potentially partner with your department at the aquarium." Sophia stared at him. "Are you suggesting we all go to Greece?" "Just for the summer initially," Julian explained. "Lisa would experience her heritage. You could expand your research, and we... He hesitated. "We could see if what we're rebuilding is strong enough to transcend geography." The proposal was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. Turned to where everything began, but this time with their daughter. With eyes wide open and hearts more cautious but perhaps wiser. "I would need guarantees about my position here," Sophia said slowly. "And Eliza's schooling, of course," Julian nodded. "We can work through all the practical details. But first, I need to know if you're open to the possibility." Sophia gazed out at the harbor lights, considering how dramatically her life had changed in less than a year. The man she had once loved, then resented, had become someone new, someone who honored his commitments, who put their daughter's needs first, who approached their fragile reconnection with patience and respect rather than entitlement. "There's something I need to know first," she said, turning back to him. "Why did you really doubt me back then? Was it just because of your father's experiences?" Julian's expression grew serious. "Partly that, but honestly, I was terrified of failing. My own father was barely present in my life, always traveling, always placing the business above family. I couldn't imagine being any different, and the thought of disappointing a child the way I'd been disappointed, double quotes. He shook his head. Seemed easier to believe you were lying than to face my own inadequacies. And now I understand that being afraid of failing doesn't justify refusing to try. Eliza deserves my best effort, even when I'm uncertain. So do you." His honesty touched something deep within Sophia. The Julian she'd known in Santorini had been charming, but guarded. This man beside her had learned vulnerability. Perhaps the most difficult lesson of all. 3 months later, Sophia stood on the deck of a Draco's maritime research vessel, watching Elisa lean against the railing beside Julian. He pointed toward the horizon, where the island of Santorini rose majestically. "From the Aegean, that's where Mommy and I met," he explained, his arm protectively around their daughter's shoulders. "Was it love at first sight?" Elisa asked with a child's romantic simplicity. Julian glanced at Sophia, his eyes reflecting the same blue as the sea surrounding them. Not exactly. Sometimes the most important things take time to recognize. As they approached the harbor, Sophia felt the weight of memory and possibility. They would spend the summer here, Sophia collaborating with local marine researchers, Julian overseeing the company's new sustainable tourism initiative, and Eliza discovering her Greek heritage under the watchful eyes of great-aunt Camilla, who had insisted on joining them. That evening, while Camilla entertained Eliza with stories of family history, Sophia and Julian walked along the same beach, where they had once said goodbye, believing they would never see each other again. "Do you regret it?" Julian asked suddenly. "How everything happened?" Sophia considered the question carefully. "I regret the pain, the years lost. But not Eliza." "Never Eliza." "Nor I," Julian agreed. He reached for her hand tentatively. "I've been thinking about what you said before we left Boston about needing to know that this isn't just about convenient parenting or old memories. And," Sophia prompted, "and I realized something. What we had that summer was real, but incomplete. We were playing roles: the adventurous researcher, the reluctant heir. What we're building now is based on who we truly are, flaws and all." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "I'm in love with you, Sophia. Not the memory of you, but the woman you are today, the brilliant scientist, the fierce mother, the person who had the courage to let me earn back her trust." The confession hung between them, carried on the same sea breeze that had witnessed their beginning years ago. Sophia felt tears gather in her eyes, not from sadness but from the recognition of truth. "I'm not fully healed," she admitted. "There are moments I still remember how it felt to read your email, to hear your rejection. But those moments are fewer. Now," she squeezed his hand, "I'm falling in love with you too, the real you, not the summer fantasy." Julian's smile was hesitant but hopeful. "So where do we go from here?" Sophia looked out at the endless blue horizon. "Forward one day. A time, building something stronger than what came before." As the setting sun painted the white cliffs of Santorini in shades of gold and rose, they walked back toward the villa where their daughter waited. It's not a perfect ending, but a perfect beginning, one built on truth, forgiveness, and the understanding that love, when genuine, can withstand even the harshest storms. Eliza ran to meet them, her mismatched eyes bright with excitement. The living embodiment of what they had created together, both the mistake and the miracle. As she took both their hands in hers, Julian and Sophia exchanged a glance of quiet understanding. Some journeys come full circle, not to repeat the past, but to heal it. Their stolen summer had given them an unexpected gift, the chance to build a future more beautiful than either could have imagined alone.